Before I dive too much into things, I want to make sure I remember to see, do any of you want to present and give feedback? I can take about 2 people. No one's jumping at it? Okay, well...
some of you should do this.
You really should. This is going to be really good. I will give you really good feedback. I will not be mean.
I'd be willing to present my idea.
That'd be great. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a full pitch, an elevator pitch, idea, anything.
Totally.
And I'd be happy to give you feedback on that.
Yeah, I would definitely.
Okay, you're in. And then, if anyone else wants to later, speak up at the end. So I'll give you a little bit about me. I am involved in a couple different things related to what Alan does. I run Dragon Curve, which is a nonprofit focused on students, alumni, and professionals, and creating a community around entrepreneurship in Seattle that pulls together a lot of the little pockets of innovation that happen around the city. We have a lot of different co-working spaces, we have a lot of different entrepreneurship programs, and we're trying to help bring the mentors and the students together in a more cohesive community. I have been coaching students in Alan's classes for the last 4 or 5 years. The students that I end up coaching generally end up being the ones who win. Am I picking them because they're winning or not? It doesn't really matter. The truth of the matter is that the way that they present and the sort of tools that I'm going to teach you today are what enable them to win. So we'll get to that in a minute. Before I do, we're going to watch some videos. And while you're watching these, try and think about what do you like about them, what do you not like about them, what's good, what's bad. And after each one, I'd like to hear a couple of things that you noticed, and then I'll say a couple of things.
My name is Josh Light, and I'm the CEO of CupAd, and we believe that we have the most effective form of advertising available in the market today. Our advertisements are exposed to customers for 2,220 seconds on average. Now, what kind of advertising has that kind of exposure time? Ladies and gentlemen, we advertise on coffee cups. That's right, we put your brand in their hand. So how does coffee cup advertising work? Well, we got an advertiser. They pay us money. We produce paper coffee cups with their advertisement or brand on it. Then we give these coffee cups to coffee stands for free. Now, why does someone want to advertise on a coffee cup? Because it takes an individual 37 minutes to drink a cup of coffee on average. That person's going to have to look at the cup, drink, look at the cup, drink 20 times before it's fully consumed. And that person's going to move around like a mobile billboard, exposing that brand to at least 6 different individuals before that cup is drank. What's in it for CupAd? We make 13 cents of profit on every single cup that we distribute. And what's in it for the coffee stands? Well, when most people think about coffee stands, they think about Starbucks. But what about the 25,000 coffee stands in this nation that have plain white cups like this? They don't have the economies to scale to put their own brand on the cup. So we give them free cups. They save $15,000 a year by not buying cups. They like these savings so much, ladies and gentlemen, that approximately 80% of the stands that we've contacted have signed exclusivity agreements to distribute our cups. What kind of momentum have we started for this company? The last month alone, we got 58 coffee stands in California to sign exclusivity agreements with us to distribute our cups. If we continue to get 58 coffee stands every single month, for the next 12 months, we will have 700 coffee stands at the end of the year. With 700 coffee stands, we can move 8 million cups a month. And at 13-cent profit, 8 million cups a month, we're making over $1 million of profit every single month. And we've already started this, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, our first customer, Overstock.com, will see their cups hit the California market in 21 days. Thank you very much.
I'm sold.
You are sold. Yes.
He moved over and over again. I don't know if I liked it, but he kept repeating that move over and over again on each of his points.
Yep, that's totally true.
I think it's a great idea. He's kind of knowing, and that's a really hard thing.
That's true.
He was also speaking too fast, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Really clear proposition.
Clear proposition explained in excruciating detail.
Yeah.
He had very good numbers to the back of this. And the energy was great.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You already had a customer on board.
Yes, that's really good. I'm not going to say too much about this yet. We're going to go through a couple more presentations, and then we'll compare, and I'll ask you which presentations you like the most. Oh, by the way, these are all pitch competition winners, the ones that I'm showing you right now.
How's the business doing now?
I don't know that business.
Hi everyone, my name is Kara Daniel, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting you. I'm going to make it easy for you to get to know me. All you have to do is remember 3 letters, and those are B, A, and P. B stands for voting, because that's what I like to do for fun. I love being outdoors and doing stuff that involves being at the lake or being at an ocean, anything, as long as there's voting involved. A stands for accounting, because that's my major. I'm a senior this year, and I will be graduating next December with 150 credits, with also a minor in communications and a minor in economics. And P stands for people. I love people, and I love getting to know everyone and listening and doing events like this. Altogether, B, A, and P stand for Beta Alpha Psi, which is a professional.
Okay, we're going to stop there. You get the idea. What did you notice?
I couldn't see what the point was.
What
is she doing? Yeah.
That's true. You don't see the point in this. This is a slightly different one where she's sort of pitching herself. The same tools will end up applying as we get into that a little bit later. What did you notice about her character and how she was like presenting? Anything in particular?
Like a Miss America pageantry.
Yes, that's true. Okay, we're going to keep going. This is a fairly standard pitch that you would see today. It's pretty much like what you would see for most pitches in business plan competition.
Hey everyone, how many of you guys are using your email to collaborate with people outside of your organization? And how many think that's really efficient? Exactly. We've built a web-based work platform that organizes work across people and across organizations because we believe that's where work is heading. We also believe that each organization has a unique way of doing things. So we've just built the platform on which you build the functionality and the applications. Whether it's for organizing a meeting, events, sharing your tasks, or fixing your box, you get a tool that works like you, not the contrary. We want to become your platform for work like Facebook is for your social life. Therefore, we've entered this enterprise market with a consumer business model, with a freemium player with premium on top. And that makes us grow 40% a month. Currently, though, we're still in private beta. So, in short, we help you out with the problem we started, so we organize your work.
What did you notice about this one?
Started with questions.
Uh-huh.
I get the impression he's trying to replace email, but I don't understand what the product actually does.
Yep.
Was this a winner as well?
Yes. All of these are pitch competition winners that we've seen so far.
I don't understand how that won.
You did well.
Everyone else must have sucked.
But this is actually really standard for what you see with people giving pitches and presentations.
This is more for Richard. As soon as he said platform, I zoned out. From like one of our previous lectures.
Yeah. Yes.
It was unclear to me that he even knew if he was creating value with his thing. He talked at a very, very high level.
Yes.
He said it was growing at 40%, but then he said it was still in beta. So I don't know. Okay, yes, that grew
Open beta?
That's also true. Smack. Now we're going to look at something that's a little bit different. We're only going to look at a short piece of this one, so.
In closing, I'm looking for investors who believe that through collaborative consumption, we can change the way delivery is done. Please send me an email at ben@native.com or come talk to me after this. Thank you.
Is that Omri?
Yep.
I'm hungry. throughout my life, I wanted to do one thing, one big thing, to be the next Jimi Hendrix. To walk up on stage at the 1969 Woodstock Festival, to make love to my guitars right there, and then to set it on fire as I'm looking at 100,000 stone fans, thinking that I'm the next big thing. Now, I have spent the past 10 years of my life trying to do this, and I know now that I'm a pretty shitty guitar player. But moreover, as a music manager and a promoter, I have learned that in music, on top of just practice and dedication, you need skill, you need talent, and you need to support to make it. And while I may never be the next Jimi Hendrix, I sure as hell know that I can help make the next one. Today's artists are struggling to make the art into a full-time job.
We're going to pause there on that one. What did you notice with that sort of first elevator pitch part?
It's a bait and switch.
Bait and switch.
He started doing one thing, and then he said, no, that's not actually it. We're doing this instead.
That's one way of looking at it.
He was passionate about it. He got into it. It seemed genuine. Fun, but also like something that he genuinely wanted.
Yes.
Or was at least genuinely passionate about.
Yes.
I'm definitely interested in what he's going to say next.
Yeah.
It may have taken kind of a long time to walk me through that, but he's definitely grabbed my attention.
Yeah.
I think he had a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So there's message in there where he says, I'm not a particularly good guitar player after trying this hard, but here I'm going to make other bands successful.
Yeah.
That's confusing.
That's fair.
He was definitely attempting to tell his pitch through, he wanted to, his way of connecting with his audience was through his funny personal story.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Some of you may have seen this one before. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is it?
Dr. Brené Brown?
Yeah, I know Renee Brown.
Did
Power of Vulnerability.
Yeah.
No worky.
No working.
Maybe that broke it.
So I'll start with this. A couple of years ago, an event planner called me because I was going to do a speaking event. And she called and she said, I'm really struggling with how to write about you on a little flyer. I thought, well, what's the struggle? And she said, well, I saw you speak, and I'm going to call you a researcher, I think, but I'm afraid if I call you a researcher, no one will come because they'll think you're boring and irrelevant. And I was like, okay. She said, but the thing I liked about your talk is, you're a storyteller, so I think what I'll do is just call you a storyteller. And of course, the academic, insecure part of me was like, you're going to call me a what? And she said, I'm going to call you a storyteller. And I was like, oh, why not Magic Pixie? I was like, let me think about this for a second. And so I tried to call deep on my courage. And I thought, I am a storyteller. I'm a qualitative researcher. I collect stories. That's what I do. And maybe stories are just data with a soul, and maybe I'm just a storyteller. So I said, you know what? Why don't you just say I'm a researcher storyteller? And she went, there's no such thing. So I'm a researcher storyteller. And I'm going to talk to you today.
That's a really good talk. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. But it's 20 minutes long, so we won't spend all class watching it. What did you notice about this video? Yes.
She's the way she was presenting had like a conversational quality to it. Like she was talking just to one person.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks that being called a storyteller is weird.
Interesting point. Yes.
It was personal, and she showed vulnerability. She didn't like to be called a storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah. She engaged her audience with the personal stories.
Yes, that's true.
Self-deprecating. The joke was at her expense.
Yep.
She has an identity too. She's crafting what she wants you to think of her as.
That's true. Now, my question for you is, so you remember Omri, who is the last sort of presentation. You remember this presentation. We're going to go back to this one.
My name is Josh Light, and I'm the CEO of CupAd, and we believe that we have the most effective form of advertising available in the market today. Our advertisements are exposed to customers for 2,220 seconds on average. Now, what kind of advertising has that kind of exposure time? Ladies and gentlemen, we advertise on coffee cups.
Which of these do you want to listen to?
Well, I wasn't sure if we were supposed to be getting positive things out of these in the beginning, so I was holding a lot of my comments back.
Please.
But he reminds me of the ShamWow guy.
Yes.
Yeah. You know? It's like, I don't want to listen to you, and it feels like you're just trying to sell me. Well, you're not telling me who you are, so I need to know. It almost seems like you're being scammed a little bit.
Yes.
But when you listen to the other people, you're learning about who they are, and then they're drawing you into whatever they're going to say now.
Yes. But he is really good at being that other guy, isn't he?
The ShamWow guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's very good.
This is a very stereotypical sort of pitch, if you will. It's like the sales pitch style. Very stereotypical, which is why it's up here, so that we have some contrast. But yes, that's true.
Yeah, I feel like no matter which style you pick, what I'm trying to do as a listener is get to the bottom of what their actual product is and how it's supposed to make money. As an investor, I want to know actual facts. So I feel myself, even with the people who are establishing a story at the beginning and trying to get an emotional kind of connection, I feel myself waiting. Like, okay, when are you going to tell me what the actual, give me some information about it?
Yep. And I have a couple things to say about pitching to investors and what that actually looks like. But if it's all right with you, I'd like to wait until later in the talk, because I think it'll make more sense.
I think this guy he's low on authenticity, but he has a lot of facts.
Yep.
So if he did not have concrete facts, I would totally dismiss him.
Okay.
I feel like to get the rest of Omri's pitch, we have to hear that last 15 seconds, because I think...
Oh, there's another couple.
Oh,
Go ahead.
It's much longer than...
It's much longer, yeah.
Oh, okay, because I feel like he was just about to tell us something about what he's doing, so we just heard, or we just got a chance to hear his catch. Like,
yeah.
Be interested in me, and we missed the part where he tells about it.
But you want to hear more.
Right, that's my point. And so, to different listeners, I think to compare them, have to show more of his to give him a fair run-in against them.
Yeah. To follow on that, the first presenters, because his information was so much facts, so much, here's my hard evidence, here's my fact, making it as short as it was for him, I think that if they'd gone any longer, I would have lost interest in it.
So to that point, I will share these links and you can see the full presentations. But for this particular case, what I want you to see is the style of presenting more than the content. And I think that's going to make a lot of sense, because when it comes to presenting, people talk about a lot of different things, right? They talk about the 10-20-30 rule. They talk about the slide order. They talk, we talk a lot about your 30-second pitch or your 10-minute investor pitch. And I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to talk about any of that. I'm going to talk to you about the things that actually matter when you're making a great presentation. When you look at Brene Brown, when you look at Omri, with a very short piece that you saw, what you see is actually that authenticity is the most important thing for you as a listener to be paying attention, to be engaged, to be drawn in. After that, it's believability. So if you remember the guy who was sort of a little bit sleepy, talking about that product that I don't even remember, because he's a little bit sleepy, but I mentioned that it was a very standard pitch. Well, that guy, he didn't have any believability, right? And I'll get to what exactly that means in a minute. And then the third most important thing, which people tend to go to first, is the content, right? Is the content correct? Are all the facts in line? Are all the facts there? Do I say all the facts? And the truth is that you have to have those things down, but in terms of your audience paying attention and getting something out of what you're saying, they're the least important. So tell me, what is authenticity?
Truth.
Truth. I like that.
relating yourself to what you're talking about.
Yep.
The lack of a facade.
Yes.
There it is.
Yes, and in the words of Oscar Wilde, just be yourself because everyone else is already taken. When you are presenting, I want you to be real. Investors want you to be real. They don't want, I mean, if you think about an investor relationship, right? I'm getting you to invest in my company. That's sort of saying, we're going to spend a lot of time together because you have to come to my board meetings, and you're probably going to have to give me advice, and so on and so forth. So if I'm an investor, I'm going to have to like you because I'm going to spend a lot of time with you. And your audience will tell you whether or not you're being authentic. If your audience is sort of leaning in or engaged, you're probably more on the side of authenticity. If they're sort of like, if most of the audience is sort of disengaged, leaning back, looking at their phones, browsing Facebook, you're more likely to be inauthentic. And during the course of a presentation, people will go in and out of authenticity. That's totally normal. I think the interesting thing about this is that while your audience is going to tell you something about, like watching your audience will tell you something about how is your presentation going, it is not going to tell you everything, right? Some person could be angry over in the corner and be like, oh, man, that guy over there is so pissed at me. And that's not a good place to present from. But it's possible that like maybe a friend just got in an accident or something, right? You don't know what's going on for the audience. And 99% of the time, it's all about them. It's not about you. So, what is believability? What does that mean?
Sound like you actually know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If you could back up with more information than what you've already said.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Honesty?
Yes. Do you sound honest, or do I think you're a crook? Yeah?
Can you get your audience to believe what you're telling?
Yes. And I would take it one step further. That I would say for your pitches, believability has to do with your passion. If I'm hearing you pitch, I want to know, why do you care about this? Why do you care about making a music app? If I don't understand the connection, like for Omri, it was very clear that he was passionate about music, and that was beautiful. But if I don't get that sort of sense, like coffee cup guy, I don't know why he cares about coffee cups. I don't know why that's an industry that he even wants to do it, or to do anything in. Because realistically, if you're starting a company, you're going to spend a lot of time doing it, and you better like what you're doing. So what makes great content? You guys picked up on a lot of different things. But what would you say? Yeah.
Something that's either factual or emotional.
Yes.
A
Anyone else?
story would make great content.
A story would make great content, yes.
So the audience can relate to.
Yes.
A good joke.
Yes. A good joke that's used well.
Yeah. For me, the data has a big impact. Knowing the data.
Yes. That's absolutely important. Anyone from this side of the room?
A story that makes sense?
Yeah.
Or a certain narrative to the story?
Yes, absolutely. Richard?
Can I add one comment on data?
Yes.
Thank you. Coffee cup guy had very precise numbers. One common mistake I see people make, and this isn't just in pitches, is people confuse precision for accuracy. He said 13 cents a cup and 456 things of whatever, and in your mind you hear a precise number, and too frequently we give too much weight to a precise number, and we believe that makes it accurate. It may not be accurate, it may just be precise. I can stand in front of you and tell you I'm 7 foot, 3 3/4 inches tall. Or I could say I'm somewhere between 5 and 6 feet. So don't confuse precision with accuracy. Thank you.
But if you often equate the two, does it even matter at that point? Or, I mean, you can gain the advantage, I guess, by using precision and know that some people...
If you're pitching, you can use, yeah, it's a thing. If you're listening, understand it's a thing. Yeah.
continuously follow
Yes.
Richards, because when I listen to the first guy, I just hear bullshit, 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 bullshit. You know, like that's a lot what I hear. Because it was too much precision.
Yeah.
It's impossible to have that kind of precision throughout the whole thing. So after the third number, it's like, why he's making all these stuff.
And I think that the only thing that I would say slightly differently than that is that it's about picking the right numbers, not about just throwing numbers out there.
I think great content has good information density.
Yes.
I don't want them to talk for a long time and only give me a few facts that matter. I want everything they say to matter, and I want it. So if it's a long pitch, I expect more. If it's a really short pitch, I kind of only expect the salient points.
Yes.
I
So
want those.
yes, that's completely correct. And the other way that I would say that is that your content, if you're making great content, it is in service to your audience, right? You're answering the question in your head, what does my audience need to hear? And the tool that I like to use, well, there's two tools. The first one is, who are you in service to, right? Because there's 3 different parties you could be in service to. You could be in service to yourself, which is, look at how cool I am. I know all this stuff, you guys don't, or something. You could be in service to the data, which would be like the first guy. We've got all these numbers and it's so great, or you can look at it a different way, which is like you've got a scientist and they're trying to go into the technical details in excruciating detail. Same sort of thing. In that case, you're in service to the data. You're not in service to your audience. If you're in service to the audience, you try and present the information to them in the order that they need to hear it, in order for them to stay engaged and interested. So the tool that I use to do that is follow the why, right? When you first get up in front of the stage, I want to hear something about why am I listening to you? That's the first question I have. Why am I listening to who? Why are you here? Something along those lines to sort of give me some context for who you are and why you're interesting. And then it's like, okay, so then if you look at Omri's pitch, he gets up there and he starts to talk about how he wanted to be the next Jimi Hendrix and he realized he couldn't, so now he's doing a business. And all of a sudden I know, oh, that's actually really interesting. I know why you're here. It gives me some context for the believability, which is why the stories turn out to be really useful. And then he jumps into, okay, well, I'm doing a business. Okay, so what does that actually do? What problem are you actually solving? And we didn't quite get to that, but that's where he was going with that. From the problem, it's just like, okay, so you're solving a problem. I am creating a marketplace for music enthusiasts to connect more directly with artists, let's say, just as an example. It's like, okay, so what? Why do people care? So if you follow the why, and I'm happy to work with people sort of offline on this, but if you follow the why, you will end up creating a presentation in the order that your audience needs to hear it, with the flow that the audience needs in order to stay engaged. And as far as presenting goes, those are like the really important topics, just authenticity, believability, and content. Yes?
How do you handle when you have multiple people presenting? Because the first person who gets up is going to give the background stories, but if people might not be able to capitalize on the credibility of the person.
Yes. Having multiple people present is a challenge. I understand that in this class you are having multiple people present. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a couple different things that I'll say. One is that you're going to have to practice the transitions, just as a logistical thing. Otherwise, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be important for you as a team to practice a lot, because it's like, okay, I get up on stage, and then I have to find this place of authenticity really quickly, because I have a really short segment of time, and then of course say what I'm going to say at the same time. So it's going to be challenging in that respect. So you'll want to practice a lot. And then I think that just practicing is going to resolve a lot of those issues. In terms of logistics for when you are presenting, there's a couple of really important things when you're presenting with a team, even if your team is just standing up there. So if the presenter were standing here and I was part of the team, my attention will be directed only at the presenter. This does some interesting things, because if the audience is watching, they'll occasionally look over at the other people up on stage, and they will see where the attention for those other people is, where they're looking, essentially, and it will be directed towards that presenter. It's sort of a logistical thing, but it turns out to be really important for creating sort of like a nice, seamless, polished presentation.
Do you think it'd be worthwhile to give just a very brief background as each person picks up? Or
So
it would also take a good amount of time.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to say is, if you follow the why, you'll understand a little bit more about how to do that in a way that makes sense, right? Like, when people get up there, I don't necessarily care that this is the marketing guy getting up here to talk about the marketing, or here's our finance guy getting up to talk about the financials. What I care most about is I care most about the story first, and then at the end of it, or somewhere in the presentation, it'll depend on exactly what you're doing, right? At some point in there, there will be like, so why are we the right people to do this? Right? And that, just sort of have to play with the flow. And I'm happy to work offline. So tips and tricks. When you're answering questions, it's really, really important to listen, to understand, and not to respond. Right? So when you're asking me questions, I try really hard to pay attention to the words and meaning that you're saying. Right? Too often in presentations, you'll have people in front of the stage listening to part of the question and then jumping in with an answer that is not related to the question, or maybe goes off on some tangent that they think is related because they didn't actually understand the question. So don't do that. If you don't know something, it is totally fine to say, I don't have that information, but I'd be happy to get back to you. Let me get your contact information afterwards. We would much, much, much rather see that than you try and just like, oh, I totally know what I'm talking about. That will make you bomb. Anything?
I was just saying, so like, don't lie.
Yeah, definitely don't lie. If you're lying, it will look really, really bad. It's that whole authenticity thing. I mentioned tracking your audience before, right? If they're leaning in, if they're sort of like eyes on you, if they're thinking, they can even be leaning back and paying attention. And as you present over time, if you're paying attention to your audience, you'll get a feel for where that is. So it's something to keep in mind, but don't worry about it too much.
I'm glad you came back to this. If you notice you've lost your audience, should you change your spiel at that point? I mean,
maybe.
Do you try to correct? Do you have a backup? Oh my God, I've lost him. Spill water?
Maybe. I think, so the first thing to do is to check in with yourself. Am I being authentic? And that, for most people, is a pretty hard thing to understand at first. It takes it actually takes quite a bit of presenting to get a sense of like, am I being authentic or am I not? Like, where am I in that spectrum? And I'll say a couple words about how to get to that place of authenticity in a minute. But that's the first thing to check in with. And then if you're losing them because you're too in service to the data or to yourself, then it's really important to just try and get a sense of, am I giving the audience the information that they need? I'll think about that one. There might be some tools that would be useful for actually trying to get a sense from the audience. I'll think about that.
My thought on that is that it is so much easier to bomb a presentation and learn from that and do it better next time than it is to recover mid-presentation. That's very hard to do.
Yeah, totally changing your content mid-presentation is really hard. If you know the content well enough, eventually you can reorganize things on the fly, but I wouldn't start out that way. And I mentioned this before. The audience is on your side. This is really important to remember because a lot of people are like, oh God, they're going to hate me. But it turns out that if you're being authentic, your audience will help you. Right? So if there's a question that you don't know, and if there's a question you don't know the answer to, you can ask the audience. Right? Does anyone know the answer to that? You can also do that to sort of create conversation, but or you will also see people in the audience helping you. So if you're not understanding like a question is being asked or something along those lines, and you're giving maybe like an answer that doesn't make sense, other audience members might say, I think what that guy is trying to say is blah, 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 blah. And so you'll see like the presentation actually be helped by the audience. In traditional presenting, like Toastmasters, people care a lot about the use of I can tell you right now that if you are authentic, no one will notice. They won't notice at all. I was in a class about presenting, actually. No, it's true. I was in a class about presenting. There's a guy who had this serious twitch. Like, I couldn't pay attention to what he was saying the whole time. It was just like, what's going on? Because he was worried, like he was thinking about this twitch thing. And he was not in a place of authenticity. But it's weird what happens. It's so incredibly weird. As soon as he got to this place of authenticity, no one noticed his twitch. He kept twitching. We had a video, we watched it again. He kept twitching, but no one noticed. A good friend of mine was really nervous about presenting to investors because she was young. So when she would go and present to these investors, they would say, aren't you a little bit young to be doing this startup? As soon as she got to a place of accepting that she was young, and that was awesome, it stopped happening. Investors stopped picking up on that like energy or the vibe. So I don't know exactly how that works, but I do know that the things that you are resistant to are the things that the audience will notice. If you are coughing, if you are sick, and you are like, oh God, I gotta try not to be sick, everyone will notice how sick you are. And so getting into that place of authenticity is getting to a place of, I am here accepting who I am, where I am. If I'm nervous and I feel like I want to vomit, that's okay. It's actually pretty normal. If I feel like I'm going to fail a presentation, also normal. And so when you're in that place of feeling that way, the question that's really helpful to ask yourself is, given that I am nervous or feel like I'm going to vomit or whatever it is, given that I'm something, how can I be effective? So when you're in those places, before you present, check in with yourself. It'll be one of the best tools that if you walk away with any tool that I can like present, that will be the best tool you can walk away with. So be real. Don't put up a mask. Don't hide yourself. If you're a nerd, be a nerd. If you care a lot about something, care a lot about something. We want to see the real you. We don't want to see sales guy. We got this and this and this. We want to see the real you.